The man hadn't planned for anything extraordinary. He thought it would be a regular evening, something casual and amusing, a spiritual detour at best. He held your picture in his hand as if it were a novelty, a curious piece of his life he wanted to present. He hadn't told you, of course. He just thought he'd drop by the psychic and see what she said, maybe laugh about it later. But from the moment he stepped into the room, something within him tightened. The air inside was still, almost sacred. Candles flickered softly against the dark, casting delicate shadows on the walls like whispering spirits. The atmosphere didn't feel fabricated. It felt ancient, as if he had walked into a space where time held its breath. He handed your photo over without much thought, trying to keep things light. The psychic didn't speak right away. She took the photograph gently, her fingertips hovering before finally resting on its edges. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just stared with the kind of focused silence that made him shift uneasily in his chair. Her eyes closed slowly, her face relaxing into something that looked like deep surrender. The man waited, unsure of what to expect, still hoping for something quirky and fun. He tried to distract himself by studying the burning sage curling in the air, pretending that nothing unusual was happening. But deep inside, a small whisper began. This was not going to be simple. The silence dragged out longer than expected, and just when he was about to break it with a joke, her demeanor shifted. Her calm was gone. Her breathing turned sharp, her shoulders trembled slightly, and a strange energy seemed to pulse in the room. She gripped the photograph a little tighter, her knuckles subtly stiffening. A chill passed over the man's neck. He leaned in, but something held him back. It felt like something sacred was unfolding before him, something he wasn't meant to interrupt. His curiosity turned to concern. Was she seeing something terrible? Subscribe if you believe in miracles. Without opening her eyes, the psychic whispered words he couldn't hear. They weren't for him. They were secrets, sacred ones, spoken into the silence. Her lips moved slowly, reverently, like prayers or confessions too fragile for the human ear. And still, the photo remained in her hands like a burning ember. He wanted to ask her what was happening, but a weight on his chest kept him quiet. He wasn't sure whether it was fear or awe, but it pressed hard. He had come for entertainment, but now he could feel it. Something real, something powerful, was present in the room. She finally opened her eyes and looked at him, but her gaze wasn't focused on him. It was distant, as if it made him feel as though your image was pulsing with something unseen. She lowered the photo gently, her hand hovering over it, as if she feared it might react. The temperature in the room dropped. Or maybe it wasn't temperature, it was presence. Like something divine had entered the space, and all physical rules had shifted. There is a depth, she continued, that calls beyond the veil. The man couldn't move. He felt rooted to the chair, watching her movements, her eyes, the shaking in her fingers. And inside him, something else began to stir. Not just wonder, recognition. As if a part of him had always known there was something more to you. He'd ignored the nudges, the strange dreams, the timing of your encounters. But now, those pieces came crashing back like fragments of a puzzle long forgotten. Share this if you love Jesus. Someone needs this message today. She placed the photo on the table and pulled her hands back quickly, like it had scorched her. "You don't know what you've brought with you," she said, almost in a whisper. He wanted to ask if she meant you, or the energy attached to you, but his voice had left him. The psychic stared into the shadows again. Her breath trembled. The air had thickened. He could feel his own pulse in his ears. "There are gifts hidden in that person's spirit," she said, "but they are not easy to carry." Her voice lowered even more. "And they are not easy to love." Those words shook him. Not easy to love? Had he sensed that? Had he pulled back sometimes without knowing why? Or maybe he'd felt the weight of something powerful and feared it. But now, it was being named aloud. Not because of weakness, but because of divine intensity, the kind that changes people, the kind that holds truth so deep it frightens those who only seek comfort. The psychic didn't elaborate. She just sat there, eyes dim with exhaustion and reverence, watching him process. She leaned forward, placing her hands on the table, close to the photograph, but not touching it again. "You're not here by mistake," she said. "This was meant to happen. They were meant to enter your life." Her voice wasn't dramatic. It was sure, like she had received a divine memo from the heavens and now passed it on, unwilling but unable to keep it secret. The man looked at the photo again. Your face, so familiar, yet now laced with mystery. Who were you truly? What had you come to awaken in him? Type Amen if you're grateful. Don't hide your faith. Comment now. The days following the visit were anything but ordinary. The man couldn't stop thinking about the psychic's words. He had walked in seeking the unspoken connection. It all seemed to shimmer with a light he had never seen until that night. He tried to explain it away. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe the psychic was just trying to be dramatic. But he couldn't shake the weight in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was awareness. He was waking up to something he had always sensed, but never admitted. A quiet truth had begun to take root. You were never just another person in his life. There was always something deeper about you, something that made him pause and pay attention. He hadn't known what to call it. Now he did. Power. He began to notice how things shifted when you were near. The way his thoughts cleared, or sometimes how they tangled. The way you saw through things, through people, as if the surface never fooled you. It made him uneasy at times, but it also made him feel seen, understood. He remembered how the psychic had spoken with reverence and warning. "They are not easy to love," she had said. But she had also called you a soul meant to transform. He hadn't truly understood those words. Until now. Subscribe if you believe in miracles. One night, he sat alone with your picture in his hands, the same one he had given the psychic. He stared at it for hours. This wasn't about looks or sentiment anymore. It was about essence. Your energy had stirred something ancient in him, something spiritual. It was as if knowing you had opened doors he never knew existed. Dreams had begun to come. Not just images, but symbols, feelings, visions, of things that hadn't happened yet, but felt as if they might. You were the thread running through all of it. He remembered something else the psychic had said. Transformation is never easy. That line became a constant echo in his mind. He started to see his own flaws, wounds, and past mistakes with piercing clarity. It was as though your presence was pulling out everything he had buried. He didn't resent it. In fact, he felt grateful. Because, through it all, he was becoming something more aware, more honest, more open. This wasn't just about understanding you. It was about rediscovering himself through you. Still, the process was not gentle. With each layer you uncovered in him, something old and unresolved came up to the surface. He wanted to run from it at times, to hide behind the comfort of denial.
But something inside whispered that if he truly wanted to grow, he couldn't turn back. You were not here to hurt him. You were here to reveal him. The difference was vast, and that difference demanded maturity, trust, and spiritual strength. Share this. If you love Jesus, someone needs this message today. He also began to notice small blessings starting to appear. Conversations that felt guided, encounters that aligned perfectly.
Rearrange his life. Not in dramatic ways, but in subtle divine alignments that made him pause and give thanks. There were still moments of resistance. He would catch himself overthinking, doubting, trying to logic his way through something that could only be understood through the Spirit. But then he'd hear the echo of the psychic's voice. It's not a power you can see or touch. It works through connection. And suddenly, everything made sense again. This wasn't meant to be figured out. It was meant to be felt. It was meant to be walked out with trust and reverence. He stopped asking why. He stopped needing explanations. Instead, he began to pray, not just for clarity, but for strength. Because he now realized that to truly walk with someone as spiritually potent as you meant he had to rise to a new level of purpose. He couldn't stay who he was before. He had to grow, stretch, become someone worthy of standing beside you in this divine assignment. And he was willing to face the discomfort, willing to embrace the mystery, willing to follow wherever this journey would lead. Type Amen if you're grateful. Don't hide your faith. Comment now. The transformation wasn't loud, it was steady. Day by day, he began to see life differently. Things that once seemed urgent no longer held power over him. His priorities shifted. He stopped chasing distractions and started leaning into moments of stillness, searching for meaning instead of escape. And in those quiet moments, he often thought of you. Not just as a person, but as a presence. Your name wasn't just tied to a face anymore, it was tied to awakening, a shift in his soul that he couldn't ignore. He found himself rereading the notes he had scribbled after the visit to the psychic. Phrases like overwhelming energy, ancient power, and soul meant to transform kept circling in his mind. They weren't just dramatic expressions, they were prophecies unfolding right before his eyes. You had not spoken those words, yet your life echoed them. Every conversation with you pulled him deeper. Every smile carried warmth and weight. Even your silence had started to speak, teaching him things about himself he had long ignored. He began to pay closer attention to his inner world. There were parts of himself he had locked away for years, old wounds, broken dreams, emotional debris he had left untouched. But since the encounter, those pieces began to rise to the surface. At first, it scared him. But then he remembered this was the work of the transformation. Like answers to prayers he hadn't yet prayed aloud, it was as if your energy had sent a signal into the heavens that awakened his divine alignment. And in those moments, when the synchronicities appeared, he felt a deep conviction. This was bigger than both of you. This was spiritual architecture being built through connection. He started keeping a journal, not of events, but of revelations. He wrote down the lessons your presence was teaching him, about surrender, about trust, about letting go of control. He stopped fearing the unknown and started embracing the divine unfolding of it all. Your energy wasn't just powerful,
It was purposeful. And he now believed with all his heart that God had sent you into his life not just to change it, but to elevate it, to call him higher. The weight of that realization wasn't light. It came with responsibility. He knew now that love wasn't just about feelings, it was about assignment. You weren't just someone to admire, you were someone to protect, to honor, to spiritually walk beside. That knowledge humbled him. He prayed for guidance daily. He asked God for strength, for discernment, for courage to match the journey he was being called to take with you. No longer just a man in love, he had become a man on a mission. Share this if you love Jesus. Someone needs this message today. The echo of the psychic's words never fully left him. They are not in your life by chance. That single sentence had become the foundation of everything he was building now. He began to prepare his life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to be someone who could support what God had placed within you. He realized this journey wasn't just about receiving love, it was about becoming love, a reflection of God's presence in your shared path. And with that clarity, he began to walk in faith, not fear. He no longer saw you as someone ordinary, he saw you as a divine mirror, a soul sent to reveal not only his gifts, but also his blind spots. A soul chosen to partner with him in growth, in prayer, in purpose. And as he matured in this realization, something deep within him settled. The restlessness faded, the questions softened, the striving ceased, because he finally understood you were not here to complete him, you were here to awaken him. And that awakening was worth every storm. He now found beauty even in the pain, even in the waiting. He saw how every difficulty prepared him to love deeper, to see clearer, to surrender faster. Your connection wasn't meant to entertain the surface, it was meant to heal the soul. And now, the man who once walked into a room with nothing but curiosity was walking daily in alignment, fueled by a vision far bigger than his own. A vision that began